You're either ethical and financially scarce, or you're unethical and financially abundant. And I think that's the most dangerous dichotomy to live in, because what that does is it detracts from great people who have great skills and great knowledge that can truly help and uplift people. It prevents them from pursuing financial greatness and greatness in their mission. Good people should stay broke, and unethical people should be given free reign of the marketplace and get rich. Why do the best people on the planet have some of the worst beliefs around money and around success? Beliefs like we should live in a barter-based society based on goodwill. Healers shouldn't charge for healing services. Someone earning more equates to someone else earning less. Charging more money creates inaccessibility for those who need it most. It is wrong to profit from people's pain points and vulnerability. Money can't buy happiness. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I love helping people. And being spiritual means the negation of all things seemingly material. I believed all these things too, to my detriment. And I want to confront some of those beliefs with you today. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Yamuna, and I lived as a monk for 4 years in monasteries all over the world, dedicating my life to studying the ancient Vedic text and to serving the community. I then started Jivanam Ayurveda and Wellness, which is an Ayurveda wellness education company that we trained hundreds of people in India's healing modalities over the course of 5 years. And now I run Conscious Business Mastery, which is a company to help holistic thought leaders, coaches, course creators, retreat leaders, training leaders scale their missions to 7+ figures. Now, why I'm making this video is because I believe that there is nothing noble in being a broke entrepreneur, especially one who has an amazing heart, an amazing mission, and a lot of knowledge to give to the world. Now, just as some context, I grew up with very, very little resources. My dad, he immigrated from Africa, Northern Africa and Morocco, and he basically worked as a dishwasher and a waiter and barely just scraped resources together, working 2-3 jobs at a time to keep food on the table and to keep us provided for. And my parents were separated, and my mom, she worked as a public school teacher for many, many years, probably 20+ years, in the lowest income schools in America, where kids were living in motels, hotels, had parents in prison, maybe didn't even know their parents, lived with grandparents, and just people who struggled, who grew up in really bad neighborhoods, who had tough lives. And she had to constantly shell out her own money to buy them school supplies, to buy them clothes, to just have them have the basic necessities. And of course, teaching is like a classic martyr archetype career where you give a lot and you get very little. It's one of the least valued models of work on the planet for some reason. But I believe that educators should be some of the highest paid individuals on the planet, because they're the only ones creating solutions to the real problems that we face. Because essentially all problems are knowledge problems, skill set problems. And when people equip themselves with knowledge, they can take themselves out of any bad situation, like I have been able to do growing up with very little and now running 2 very successful companies and helping hundreds of people do the same. So I'm going to break down why it is not noble to be broke. And let's jump into one of the charts that I've made, which is called the Ethical Wealth Punnett Square, and see if we can confront some of these beliefs that you may have and take you to the next level in your beliefs and hopefully in your income as well. All right, so let's take a look at the Ethical Wealth Punnett Square. Now on the y-axis here, this is highly ethical person on the top right here. And then this is a highly unethical person on the bottom here. On the left, we have financially abundant, right? A lot of material resources, money, wealth, etc. And then on this side, financially scarce. So not very many resources whatsoever. Okay, now I'm going to break down each of these archetypes. And of course, there's some generalizations in these, but I think it's really going to powerfully drive home some examples and some ways you can transform the way you lead and the way you think about money, the way you think about success, and ultimately transform the fabric of society. So the first category, which I think all of us can agree on we don't want to be in, is this unethical and financially scarce. Okay, and we'll just call this archetype bottom feeder or cheater. Obviously a generalization here, but you get the point, right? People who have very low moral sense, low ethical sense, they just want to take, they don't want to give, stealing, thieving, thugging, exploiting, scamming, complaining, victimizing, etc. that is this archetype, right? Just not getting by at all, and also not really striving to be a very, developed human or give back or put anyone else in the center except themselves. Okay. That is not any of you, right? And also not anything that we aspire to be. So we can, cross this one out here as a possibility. We don't want to be this person, and I don't think any of you guys are. Now, category number 2 here is unethical but financially abundant. And just, again, the archetype we'll call celebrity and elite explorer, right? So obviously a generalization with celebrity, but you get the point. Artist, someone who's socially elite, who basically, again, lives a self-centered existence, and it's kind of just like the stereotypical wealthy person who is just living lavishly and not really thinking about anybody else except themselves. Or on the other end, there's like, elite exploiters, people who maybe run large companies or businesses that smash their employees and are not actually contributing any good to society. They're maybe even spreading a lot of harm to society and benefiting in, selling poison products, selling horrible foods, selling horrible medications that don't help people, but they're making tons of money off of it. Now, none of us are going to be this one either. Where I think a lot of people are, and a very, very interesting archetype that, of course, I'm familiar with, because again, I hold so many of these beliefs, is the ethical person who's financially scarce, and we'll call them the martyr or noble Brokie. People who think for some reason or another, it is noble to be broke. It is noble to not have the financial resources needed to thrive, because they have all these ethical, religious, moral, social constructs of what wealth means. And of course, we'll dive into that in a moment. And then lastly, there's the ethical person who's financially abundant. And I like to call this person the entrepreneurial hero and change maker, someone who has a lot of resources and also has really high levels of ethical standards, spiritual standards. Now, of course, this is the transformation that I want to help people with. I want to help people go from martyr and noble Brokie to hero and change maker. For some reason, this dichotomy exists on the planet within the healer space, that either you're in this martyr and noble Brokie category, or you're in this unethical, financially abundant space. Okay? For some reason, this transformation here to entrepreneurial hero and change maker is not even an option in people's minds. I don't really understand why. I think people just simplified by thinking about dual concepts, thinking about black and white concepts, like you're either ethical and financially scarce or you're unethical and financially abundant. And I think that's the most dangerous dichotomy to live in, because what that does is it detracts from great people who have great skills and great knowledge that can truly help and uplift people. It prevents them from pursuing financial greatness and greatness in their mission. And so then what happens is people who are unethical go from financially scarce and they work the system and rise to the top, right? There's none of this flow going on from, ethical and financially scarce to financially abundant and ethical. So what it does is it just allows a lot of this to happen in the marketplace. And of course, this is what's sensationalized on the media. So you see really bad examples of wealth. But again, like if we were to do like a case study of all of society, you would see all 4 of these archetypes exist. You would see among quote unquote poor people or people without much financial means, that there's people with really high levels of virtue, and they're selfless and they give back even with very little resources. They're always giving and they're always thinking of others, and they're really incredible humans. And I've met many, many, many people like this. And then there's people who have very little resources and are not developed whatsoever, not thinking of anyone else. They're just looking to take, they're just looking to steal, they're just looking to cheat. And you could look at the other side of, wealthy people. There are wealthy people who are super unethical, and there are wealthy people who are really looking to give back. They're really selfless and they really want to promote amazing values in the planet. So my mission here is to help you go from this martyr and noble Brokie status, if you are here whatsoever, to this hero and change maker status. I think this is the most powerful shift that anyone can choose in society, and what I'm most interested in helping people through our company do. Before we jump into that, of course, I've named some of the dangers of this martyr noble Brokie. We should live in a barter society. We shouldn't charge for healing services. If you earn more, it means someone else is making less. If you charge more, it's going to create an accessibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How some of this has played out in my own life is, and I see it in a lot of other people, is judging people that are ahead of me and assuming that they must have gotten there by unethical means. So you see this on the internet all the time, right? You see some guy who posts, his huge muscles and six pack or whatever, and all the comments under it are like, oh, you're on testosterone. Oh, you're on steroids. Oh, you're juicing or whatever. You see somebody running ads on Instagram and helping people become financially successful. We get these on our ads all the time. And people say scam, grifter, pyramid scheme, etc. And it's tragic because the martyr and noble Brokie will rationalize their way out of success for their entire life. They will rationalize their way out of confronting their own unmet potential for their entire life. And really, that's all judgment, envy, and comparison is you look at somebody else and then you attribute a negative character value to them, which, by the way, simultaneously attributes that opposite and positive character trait to yourself. So when you say somebody is stupid or unethical and you label them, you are simultaneously labeling yourself the opposite because you believe that to be true about yourself. So I at least somewhat believe I am smart and ethical and developed and woke and whatever when I say something negative about somebody else. And it's a way of protecting yourself from your own unmet potential that's sitting right outside of you. Now, of course, there are people in this category who are unethical, but there are also people in this category that are simply labeled unethical and judged. A brother of mine, within my community who's doing amazing work and making millions and millions and millions of dollars and is an incredible human. And I look at his ads on Instagram and I just see hate and scam and so many things under it, and they don't even know the person. So it's so interesting. You don't know the person, but yet to protect yourself from your own contrast of feeling your own unmet potential, you ascribe a negative character trait to the other and therefore ascribe the opposite and positive character trait to yourself. But there is nothing noble in being broke. Another way that this noble Brokie, thing played out for myself, just speaking from experience, is a constant calculation of what I was giving. So because I didn't have many resources, I was just calculating how much can I give? How much can't I give? What are other people giving? What are other people not giving? And just feeling like I had to potentially withhold sometimes because I wasn't feeling stable, because I wasn't feeling like I really honestly knew how wealth worked and where my next client was going to come from and where money was going to come from, because I was in the dark, right? Just through working really, really hard, when the only model is work extremely hard and charge as little as possible. It is hard to give in that model because you are directly giving a large output of life force when you're giving. Another way that this martyr and noble Brokie thing played out for myself was for many years living with very little in my bank account, as a monk and also as a hippie sort of person, and traveling the world and basically thinking okay, I beat the capitalist system. I'm traveling, I'm enjoying, I'm seeing all these sites, I'm camping in the forest, I'm staying in a $10 hostel, I'm eating a $2, baguette with cheese and tomatoes in Italy. Yeah, that was amazing. And then I think it got to a certain point where I realized, okay, $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month, that is fine just for me. But as soon as I thought bigger, family, community, mission, building something big, I realized that I was falling massively short of what I needed to make any of those visions for family, community, mission, etc. possible. Temples cost money. Community costs money. Feeding people costs money. Raising an amazing, healthy family unit, which is the basis of all society, costs money. We do not live in these communal village settings where everyone just happily provides for each other at all times and just uplifts each other and just, barters and whatever. It is just not the reality anymore. We live in nuclear situations. Sometimes in neighborhoods I lived in, I didn't know most of the neighbors, and neighbors weren't interested in knowing the other neighbors. Now I know, most of my neighbors, but it is a rare thing. Like, it's weird that I was weirded out to some extent. Of course, I was pleasantly surprised, I should say, not weirded out, that all my neighbors here in our new neighborhood came out, greeted us, brought us gifts. We're so excited we're here, invited us to a group chat, have done sweet things for us, lent us things, like invited us into their community. But it's the first time I've experienced that probably in my life. I think that as long as you just want to live for yourself, you're right. You don't need to make more. You don't need to make this ascension to financially abundant. As long as you're just thinking about yourself and maybe just your family, you don't really need much. And the thing is, this sort of transition isn't just for you, but it is the best means for selfless people to actually do what they want to do, which is to give back as much as possible. Because when you're in this situation, you really can't do that. And for some reason, some people think they can give more when they have less than give more when they have more. And it just is wild to me. Simply put, narrow-minded business owners only make what they need. They are not thinking as big as they could be because they just don't know what's possible. And because they've made this dichotomy of either I'm unethical and financially abundant, and they just don't know the model to get to this ethical, financially abundant space, or they're just thinking very narrow, just thinking like about themselves and whatever. I get on calls with hundreds of people who tell me their visions. They say, oh, I want to live off grid. I want to start my own community. I want to build my own retreat center. I want to have land and give back and start this nonprofit and blah, so many things. And the thing is, how many of them will actually do it? Very, very, very few. Out of all the people that I spoke to who said they wanted to live off grid and do all these things, only one of them was actually doing it. And of course, there are many people doing amazing things, but our aspirations are not enough. We need action. We need systems. We need teams. We need a community of people who also understand the role of financial abundance in making amazing things on the planet happen, and just coming to terms with the reality of living in a capitalist society and living in a money-based society where everything you do is based on money on some level. Now, one classic example of how this dichotomy between noble Brokie and elite exploiter was made, and essentially the concept of class-based guilt, where people who are in a higher class financially are evil, bad, wrong, exploitative, manipulative, valueless, etc. One really great example of this was in Russia, I believe in the 1920s, after the 1918 revolution, when basically peasants were given some land, and a select few of those peasants became extremely good at producing crops. And so they fed a large sector of Russia and Ukraine with all those crops, and therefore became very wealthy through becoming very good and very efficient and very productive at farming. And basically, when the new regime and the government came to power, they made a campaign to the masses. And they basically said, hey, masses, hey, common people, these select few landowners are making all the money and they're stealing all the opportunity from you, which again is where this whole concept that I named in the beginning, this belief of like someone else earning more means taking away from someone else's opportunity, which I just really don't believe at this point in my existence. But anyways, this concept was promoted that, hey, these wealthy landowners who are producing all these crops are stealing all the opportunity from you. So basically, collectively, they decided to kill those landowners, or send them to like Siberia, send them to some far off place in Russia, and they killed the rest and redistributed all of their land to the quote unquote collective. And basically 1 or 2 years later, as a result of this, 6 million people died of hunger in Ukraine and Russia. And so it's an example of how any class-based, race-based, ethnicity-based, religious-based guilt that attributes culpability to an entire sector of people based on external membership is very dangerous. And we see it happening all the time. Yet, for some reason, this class-based guilt and class-based culpability of an entire sector of people who are financially abundant is socially accepted because of this certain narrative around this person that they only fit into this category and they don't fit into this category. Yet 6 million people died because of this simple belief. Now, to close off this chart and really bring it home about the hero and change maker in this transition, obviously there's a lot to this discussion here, but you just think about it. Like the ethical person, their goal is to give value to society. Their goal is to uplift people, to heal people, to give people education, a means by which to be better and have a great existence and realize God and realize love and feel tremendously supported in life. Now, can you give more people that feeling when you have less resources? Or can you give more people that experience when you have more resources? For some reason, this person thinks that they can help more people when they have less resources, which for me just is kind of mind-boggling. Now, a lot of the things that people don't consider here is being the noble Brokie has very little longevity to it. I see burnt out healers, burnt out massage therapists, burnt out wellness entrepreneurs all the time, which is so contradictory because they're expecting to sell this product that they themselves are not even buying, right? They're not even bought in on wellness because they're so burnt out from existing in this archetype that they themselves are not feeling healthy. They themselves are not feeling supported. They themselves are not feeling vibrant, yet they're trying to sell vibrancy from a place of lack and from a place of being burnt out. And that is a self-doing because of this noble Brokie identity in many cases. So this has very little longevity to it. You don't have the resources to sustain this sort of career, to reinvest in your own education, to reinvest in your own health, healing, well-being, to get help around the house, to have organic foods, to go on trips, to hire mentors, to hire help in your business. Whereas this person, the hero and changemaker, they can hire a team. And not only that, they can have amazing humans who then don't have to work minimum wage jobs or work at Amazon, stocking shelves, which of course, nothing wrong with that, but you get what I'm saying? Like they get to contribute meaningful work to a meaningful mission and potentially earn a high level of income in an uplifting environment where they are valued, where they are cherished, where they are uplifted by the leader. And I think a lot of people don't take that seriously enough. If you are an entrepreneur, I believe it is your duty to go as far into the financially abundant extreme as possible, while of course staying ethical, so that you can employ as many people as possible, so that you can help as many people as possible. Because when you do not, you are contributing to this change down here, okay? This arrow down here of unethical people fighting their way up to the top and stealing the market. And then now people have to work for bad bosses, for bad companies that don't contribute to society just to sustain themselves. So I just want to invite, what would this transformation be like for you? I want to help at least 10,000 people. Okay, this is horrible drawing. 10,000 people go to $100,000 a month. Okay, which seems like a lot, but it's really not when you have a team and when you have a mission. Retreat centers cost a lot. Temples cost a lot. Food costs a lot. Families cost a lot. Employees cost a lot. And you want them to have a good life too. I want to help at least 10,000 people go to $100,000, not per year, per month. I want to see the best people on the planet have as much of the share of wealth as possible so they can do as much good as possible. Now, I've literally seen comments on my ads and stuff where people are like, Yamuna, you're contributing to the wealth disparity of the world by helping people, which by the way, my ads only say $10K a month or $20K a month, not even $100,000 a month. And yet people think that a healer making $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month is somehow creating wealth disparity in the world. So of course, being me, I made this chart. So here's a chart of the net worth of the top 50 wealthiest people. Okay, just Google it, top 50 wealthiest people net worth, add it all together. It's $4.2 trillion, something like that. And 100,000 individuals, right? Not even 10,000, which is my mission here. 100,000 individuals earning $100,000 a month. Here's a comparison, okay? This is Me helping 100,000 healers, coaches, course creators, thought leaders go to $100,000 a month. Yet 50 people still hold 35 times more wealth than 100,000 individuals earning this high level. 50 people make more than 100,000 people earning $100,000 a month by 35x. So I'm just drawing a few examples here. And of course, there's so much more to this discussion, but I hope that this helped just spark a little bit of a conversation. And, I'd love to know your thoughts too. I'd love to continue this conversation. And things aren't black and white. Obviously, there's a spectrum here of archetypes. There's a spectrum of beliefs. There's a spectrum of right answers. But I really invite you to just observe your relationship with some of those beliefs that I spoke in the beginning and see, are they actually helping you make more impact? You believing that we should live in a barter society, you believing that we shouldn't charge for healing services, like, is that contributing to more healing happening in the world on the greater picture when you really zoom out, or less? Is the belief that you making more means taking away from somebody else, is that making there be exponentially more healing in the world, or less?